I've been making films for over 30 years, and during that time, I've made approximately 50 films. I've chosen 12 to be part of the show. So it's a representative sample of my practice over the course of my career. And the question of how to select them was important. I've done a number of different types of films, and I have been obsessed with the Cold War for decades, even though it's over. And I've been interested in exploring sources like the CIA Film Library, the National Archives, the Library of Congress for material. One of the things I have to do is strike a compromise between the experience of seeing a film in the cinema and the experience of seeing a film in a gallery. Often people just sort of wander in and look at a few minutes of something and wander out when they're in an art space. On the other hand, there are a few hardcore people who want to treat it like it's a cinema. And I really sympathize with that impulse. So I made a program that's exactly 2 hours long that repeats every other hour. And it is very roughly in chronological order. And then there's the wild card, there's Rejected, which is a piece that's almost 8 hours long, and it runs independently. I'm trying to mix it up and not make the program be all one thing or all one style. And this is a fundamental aspect of my practice. I'm not interested in having a coherent visual style. I'm interested in ideas. I'm interested in subject matter. I'm also interested in pursuing my curiosity wherever the hell it leads. And the notion of doing something perfectly coherent is really against the most fundamental principle I have in making art. I don't really like the heroism of going out and shooting things. And when I made The Fall of Communism as Seen in Gay Pornography, I was really poor. I couldn't afford a trip to Eastern Europe to photograph what was going on. So I just went to the local video store and rented tapes of porno and saw what was distinctive about them and made a compilation. You could say the project is teasing out history from found images, highlighting it in a way that important historical transformations become visible. So, in many of these works, there are figures of authority that get questioned or subverted. Sometimes the authority is very obvious, like the CIA funded really brutal mind control experiments conducted in Montreal on unwitting subjects, which is the subject of psychic driving. There's also a reflection on technology and actual TV picture. You have the stroboscopic alternation of bombing in Vietnam and new technological products for consumers. Yeah, and there are a couple of movies that are about currency, model workers, which is composed of images of banknotes that have representations of workers on them. The United States would never do this. There's also counterfeit, which is about how to counterfeit money. The way I put it for mid-century was, this is the work of a hyperactive child with problems with authority who grew up during the Cold War. And that's what I was. I'm a 20th century person in a lot of respects, and mid-century is a compilation of things that really dominated the 20th century. Discrepancy is an important video in the program, and it was a project that could conceivably have been infinite. It was a kind of machine generating more and more films. And I'm interested in discrepancy as a way of talking back to authority. And in this case, the authority is the mainstream cinema that dominates our consciousness. It's a kind of punk film. It emphasizes that destruction is also a creative act. And for me, this was a very important discovery that the cinema can be about constructing something, but it can also be about destroying something. In many of the works, I'm looking at the material itself. I'm not trying to impose too much on it. I'm looking at what is interesting about this material, what's telling about it, what's important. where do I see history in this material? And then I transform it, I hope, in a way that makes this historicity, for lack of a better word, obvious. And it's often a fairly subtle change. Sometimes it's a bit outrageous, but I want to get at something that isn't just about making a pretty picture. I hope that people reflect upon history when they watch these works.